is up, guys? EJ here, back with another video, and today it's going to be my DVD collection 2016 and Drama Part 3. So last time I finished with the J's. So starting off with the K's, up first we have The Killing Fields from 1984. Terrific film directed by Roland Joffe. Let me get more comfortable here. Next we have The King's Speech from 2010 on Blu-ray. Oscar winner for Best Picture, and of course Colin Firth for Best Actor. I thought Jeffrey Rush was fantastic in this movie as well. Helena Bonham Carter. Up next we have Kinsey from 2004. Really good film with Liam Neeson and Laura Linney. Cool slipcase with the keyhole there. Up next we have King's Row from 1941 with Ann Sheridan and Robert Cummings, Ronald Reagan as well. Up next we have Kramer vs. Kramer, a fantastic film from 1979 with Dustin Hoffman and Meryl Streep. Up next we've got Labor Day from 2012, I believe. Yeah, really good film with Kate Winslet and Josh Brolin. About an escaped convict who shacks up with a woman and her son for a weekend. Up next we've got Leaving Las Vegas, a great film by Mike Figgis from 1995. Nicolas Cage, of course, best actor Oscar that year. Elizabeth Shue, wonderful as well. Up next we've got The Last Picture Show from 1971, one of the great films of the 70s, with Timothy Bottoms, Sybil Shepherd, Jeff Bridges, Ellen Burstyn, Ben Johnson, Cloris Leachman, and Randy Quaid. Up next we've got Legends of the Fall from 1994. A great looking movie with Brad Pitt, Anthony Hopkins, Aidan Quinn, and Julia Ormond. Alright, moving on down here. Up next we've got Less Than Zero from 1987. Yeah, great performance by Robert Downey Jr., Andrew McCarthy, and Jamie Gertz. Up next we've got Life is Beautiful from 1998. 98. Roberto Benigni directed this beautiful Italian film, heartbreaking movie. I remember when I first saw it, I cried like a baby at the end of that film. Up next we got The Life of David Gale from 2003. I know Scott Cineram is a big fan of this film, as am I. Terrific movie about a teacher who goes on, is about to be is on death row for murder of his colleague, but the whole thing was a setup. Really good film with Kate Winslet, Kevin Spacey, and Laura Linney. Up next we got Lifeboat, Alfred Hitchcock classic from 1944, of course. Up next we've got Lincoln from 2012, directed by Steven Spielberg. Daniel Day-Lewis, fantastic as Abraham Lincoln. Sally Field as well. A whole host of good actors, actually. Tom Lee Jones, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, one of the best films of that year. Up next we've got The Lion in Winter from 1968. A great movie with Peter O'Toole and Katharine Hepburn. Up next, another good film starring Kate Winslet from 2006, Little Children, directed by Todd Field, along with Jennifer Connelly, Patrick Wilson, and Jackie Earle Haley. Really good in this film as well. Up next, we've got The Little Foxes from 1941 with Bette Davis. Up next we have Little Women from 1933, film directed by George Cukor, starring Katharine Hepburn. And I also have the 1993 remake with Winona Ryder. Up next we've got Stanley Kubrick's Lolita from 1962, fantastic film of course with James Mason, Shelley Winters, and Peter Sellers. Up next we have Lovelace on Blu-ray from 2013, of course starring Amanda Seyfried as Linda Lovelace from the first major porn film, Deep Throat. Really good supporting cast: Peter Sarsgaard, Hank Azaria, Adam Brodie, Bobby Cannavale, James Franco, Chloe Sevigny, Sharon Stone, Juno Temple. Okay, up next we have the Magnificent Ambersons from 1942. Directed by Orson Welles. For a time, this was a really hard film to find. It wasn't available on DVD. This is like one of the last DVDs I picked up, actually. So I was really happy to get that eventually. Up next, we have Magnolia. Of course, fantastic film directed by Paul Thomas Anderson. Brilliant story, brilliant cast, led by Tom Cruise. Fantastic performance by him, Julianne Moore, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Philip Baker Hall, Melinda Dillon, to name a few. Terrific movie. Up next, we have The Majestic from 2001, underrated film directed by Frank Darabont, starring Jim Carrey. If you love movies, highly recommend this film. Up next, we have Spike Lee's Malcolm X from 1992, of course, starring Denzel Washington and Angela Bassett. Fantastic movie. Up next, we have A Man for All Seasons, Oscar-winning film from 1966, directed by Fred Zinnemann. Okay, up next we have Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom from 2013 on Blu-ray. Terrific film, of course, starring Idris Elba as Nelson Mandela and Naomi Harris. Up next we have Marie Antoinette from 2005 or 6, I believe. Really good, bright and colorful film directed by Sofia Coppola, starring Kirsten Dunst. Up next, we have The Master from 2012, again from Paul Thomas Anderson. Really interesting film, fantastic performances by Joaquin Phoenix, Philip Seymour Hoffman, and Amy Adams. Up next, we have Michael from 1996. Interesting movie about not a very couth angel that falls to earth, starring John Travolta, Andy McDowell, William Hurt. Just like pushed in that like little thing that fell off in the part 1 of this video. I haven't put it back in somewhere yet. Okay, up next we have Midnight Cowboy from 1969. Of course, fantastic film directed by John Schlesinger, starring Dustin Hoffman and Jon Voight. Up next, we have Midnight Express from 1978. Great movie, of course, directed by Alan Parker. Okay, up next, we have Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil from, when did this come out now? I think 1997, 1998. Directed by Clint Eastwood. Yeah, really good film with John Cusack and Kevin Spacey. Up next, we have Milk from 2008, one of my favorite films of that year. Of course, Sean Penn, fantastic as Harvey Milk, Emil Hirsch, Josh Brolin, Diego Luna, and James Franco. My girl Marcy, her sister, she was the executive producer on this film. It's kind of hard to read that, but she claims she was the executive producer on that movie. Okay, up next we have Les Mis or Les Miserables. Not the musical version. This is the 1998 version with Liam Neeson, Jeffrey Rush, Uma Thurman, and Claire Danes. Still a good film. Up next we have The Misfits from 1961, I believe, with Clark Gable, Marilyn Monroe, and Montgomery Clift. Up next, we have Frank Capra's Mr. Smith Goes to Washington with Jimmy Stewart and Jean Arthur, one of Capra's best. Up next, we have Mrs. Miniver from 1942. Another one of these Canadian releases because it's got Madame Miniver as well on the cover. Greer Garson and Walter Pidgeon. Up next, we have Monster from 2004. Of course, Charlize Theron won Best Actress Oscar for this performance. Yeah, really tough film. Fantastic performance by Theron. Christina Ricci, really good as well. Film directed by Patty Jenkins. Up next, we have Moonlight Mile. Really underrated film from 2002. Interesting family drama. great cast: Jake Gyllenhaal, Dustin Hoffman, Susan Sarandon, and Holly Hunter. Up next, we have Moonrise Kingdom from 2012. Really good film, directed by Wes Anderson, one of my favorites from him in recent years. I also picked this up on Criterion Collection. Great cast: Bruce Willis, Edward Norton, Bill Murray, Frances McDormand, Tilda Swinton, Jason Schwartzman, and Bob Balaban. Get back in there. Alright, up next we have A Most Violent Year. A really good film from 2014 with Oscar Isaac and Jessica Chastain, David Oyelowo, Albert Brooks, Alessandro Nivola. Okay, up next we have Munich from 2005, fantastic film directed by Steven Spielberg, with Eric Bana, Daniel Craig, Kieran Hines. Just a terrific film. Up next we have My Left Foot from 1989 with Daniel Day-Lewis and Brenda Fricker. Really good performance by Day-Lewis, but that goes without saying these days. Up next, we have My Week with Marilyn from 2011 on Blu-ray. Really good film, starring Michelle Williams, Eddie Redmayne, Kenneth Branagh, and Judi Dench. Up next, we have Mystic River, of course, Oscar-winning film from 2007. 2004, sorry, I didn't win Best Picture that year. Directed by Clint Eastwood. Yeah, Sean Penn won Best Actor. Tim Robbins, Best Supporting Actor. Just a heartbreaking movie. Kevin Bacon, Lawrence Fishburne, Marcia Gay Harden, and Laura Linney. Up next, we have Oliver Stone's Nixon from 1995 with Anthony Hopkins. Excuse me. Down here in the bottom, it's kind of uncomfortable. Up next, we have Norma Rae from 1979. Terrific performance by Sally Field, of course. Beau Bridges. Up next, we have North Country from 2005. Sort of a similar subject to Norma Rae, in fact. Again, Charlize Theron, terrific. Frances McDormand, Sissy Spacek, Woody Harrelson, and Sean Bean. Up next, we have the notorious Betty Page from 2008. Yeah, Gretchen Mol is pin-up model Betty Page, just fantastic. Loved her on Boardwalk Empire as well. Okay, up next we have Nymphomaniac, Volume 1 and Volume 2. Of course, Lars von Trier's epic about a nymphomaniac, obviously, played by... what's her name? Charlotte Gainsbourg, who gets picked up by Stellan Skarsgård after she's beaten up and left for dead, and she tells this whole story of her sexual prowess. Up next, we have On Golden Pond from 1981. Yeah, one of the last great films, starring Katharine Hepburn, Henry Fonda, and Jane Fonda. Okay, up next we have October Sky from 1999. Really good film starring Jake Gyllenhaal, Laura Dern, and Chris Cooper. Up next, we have one of my all-time favorite films, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest from 1975, directed by Milos Forman. Jack Nicholson, just fantastic, as is Louise Fletcher, of course, as Nurse Ratched, one of the great female villains of all time. Up next, we have Ordinary People from 1980, Oscar-winning film from that year with Donald Sutherland, Mary Tyler Moore, and Timothy Hutton. Yeah, really good film, even though Raging Bull is better and probably should have won Best Picture that year. Up next, we have Out of Africa from 1985, terrific film directed by Sidney Pollack, starring Robert Redford and Meryl Streep. Sorry about if you can hear the motorcycle in the background. Up next, we have Papillon, a great Franklin J. Schaffner film from 1973 with Steve McQueen and Dustin Hoffman. Up next, we have A Passage to India from 1984, David Lean film with Peggy Ashcroft, Judy Davis, James Fox, Alec Guinness, Nigel Havers, and Victor Banerjee. Up next, we have Passion Fish from 1992. Great film by John Sayles with Marion McDonald and Alfre Woodard, whose name I was able to say a lot better this time around. Up next, we had The Passion of the Christ from 2004. Of course, Mel Gibson's epic about the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, played by Jim Caviezel. Yeah, tough film to watch, that's for sure. I've only seen it twice, and it's been a long time since I've seen it now. Up next, we have The Pawnbroker from 1965. Really good film starring Rod Steiger, directed by Sidney Lumet. If you haven't gathered by now, I'm a big Sidney Lumet film. Made a lot of great films in the 60s and 70s. Up next, we have Pay It Forward from 2000. Yeah, good film with Kevin Spacey, Helen Hunt, and Haley Joel Osment. Whatever happened to that kid, besides getting kind of big. Up next, we have The People vs. Larry Flynt, another good film directed by Milos Forman, starring Woody Harrelson, Courtney Love, and Edward Norton, of course. Really cool slipcover on that. Like that one a lot. Okay, up next, we have Peyton Place from 1957, one of these 20th Century Fox studio classics, Lana Turner and Lee Phillips. Up next, we have Philadelphia, of course, from 1993. Fantastic film directed by Jonathan Demme with Tom Hanks and Denzel Washington, of course. Up next, we have The Pianist from 2002, directed by Roman Polanski, of course, who won Best Director that year. Adrien Brody is Best Actor. Really good war drama. Up next, we have The Piano from 1993. I said piano, that's funny. Holly Hunter, Harvey Keitel, Sam Neill. What's her name? Won Best Supporting Actress as well that year. She was really young at the time. Anna Paquin. Yeah, Jane Campion film. Up next, we have The Picture of Dorian Gray from 1945 with George Sanders and Donna Reed. Okay, up next, we have Pieces of April from 2003. Really good film with Katie Holmes, Patricia Clarkson, Derek Luke, Sean Hayes, and Oliver Platt, who I'm a big fan of. I've always liked Oliver Platt and Patricia Clarkson as well. Really good film to watch at Thanksgiving. Up next, we have Presumed Innocent from 1990, I believe, with Harrison Ford and Greta Scacchi. Yeah, sort of a sexy thriller almost. Okay, up next, we have Primal Fear from 1996. Really good film starring Richard Gere and Edward Norton, of course. One of Edward Norton's earliest performances. So that's the bottom there. I'm going to finish on the cues. So just a couple more to go. Up next, we have The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie from 1969. Fantastic performance by Maggie Smith, of course. Okay, up next, we have The Queen from, when did this come out now? Like 2008. Really good film. Or 2006, sorry. With Helen Mirren, of course. Oscar-winning performance by her. Really good film directed by Stephen Frears, of course, following the death of Lady Diana, or Princess Diana. Oh god, of course it's stuck together. Up next, we have Quills from 2000. Really good film about the Marquis de Sade, played by Jeffrey Rush, who's fantastic in the movie, as is Kate Winslet, of course, Joaquin Phoenix, and Michael Caine. And last but not least, for this part, we have a Quiz Show from 1994. A really good film by Robert Redford, of course, starring Ray Fiennes, John Turturro, about the quiz show scandal in the 1950s. So that is part 3 of drama. Up next, we'll be doing part 4, the final part. Thank you for watching as always. And until next time, I'll see ya.